Life Unfiltered podcast with your hosts, Kitul Kothari and Deepan Jain. In this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests to connect the dots between their upbringing and what they're doing today. We actually have special guests today, Vishal Kalyanasundar. He's actually had his premiere from a media standpoint on season 2 of Indian Matchmaking. Vishal, if you want to quickly introduce yourself for everyone.
Yeah, it's actually Vishal Kalyanasundram. You missed, but it makes sense that you missed that because my name is so long, it gets cut off on every platform that I'm on. So
okay,
that's like what my credit card does. But I usually go by Cal sometimes, so it doesn't get cut off. What's up, guys? I am based in New York right now. I'm a software engineer at Google. I do stand-up on the side from the Bay Area. Went to school in the Bay Area, lived there for first 27 years of my life. That's a lie. I was actually born in India and I moved to the US when I was 3, and I spent the next 24 years in the Bay, and then now I'm here in New York. Thank you for having me.
All right,
fantastic. For sure. Do you want to quickly touch upon a little bit about your early childhood growing up in the Bay Area? Any early motivations that you are inspired you to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, man, that's an interesting question. The thing I always go back to, I think, I could be wrong, but my parents always liked to label me as a mischievous child. I would get constant complaints from teachers for being called a chatterbox, and that's something that my parents loved calling me growing up, was a chatterbox. And I like that, I was just a fun, goofy kid. But I think the memory that sticks out is I had just moved to America, right before the school year started. And then I was in preschool, and then a couple months in, my parents were worried about me knowing English at a sufficient level, and they were make sure give him extra stuff to make sure he fits in. And then during the winter musical, 4 months in, the teacher was Vishal, you're gonna be Santa in the preschool play or whatever, and everyone else was an elf. And I fucking crushed that role, dude. And I think I always liked performing, and I always liked doing that kind of stuff. I always liked people and being around people, but I feel you could kind of tell early on that there was just oh man, I just love doing these kinds of things.
Did you participate in a lot of drama activities while growing up as well in school, or was just it was kind of on and off for you, you was trying to figure out where you can participate?
As much as I could, yeah. I mean, definitely in high school, I made sure to do drama every year. But, I had Indian parents still. So, I wasn't able to do, plays and musicals outside of school. I ended up, interning at NASA instead. Because they wanted me to, have a career and make money. But I tried to always, be able to do it all the time, Yeah. What about you guys? I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you questions back, but
you're actually one of the first to do that. That's funny. Okay, let's do it. Deepa, you go first.
Sorry, what was the question? Oh yeah, growing up, I was I've been a lot into music from a very early age. I've been singing since the day I was born, literally, right? So I used to participate a lot in music competitions, but similar to what you said, I also had Indian parents, right? So they wanted me to have a career. So yeah, I just pursued my undergrad in computer science and just started working right after that, and been trying to do stuff on the side. But that's pretty much it for me.
Can I ask 2 follow-up questions?
Of course.
What kind of music was it, and do you still do it now? Do you still get a chance to engage in it?
Yeah, so I participated a lot in national competitions while I was in undergrad. So we used to go to other colleges from entire nation will come and they will participate. So it was more of a classical music, and it was both Western classical and Indian classical. I did not have any training in any type of music, but we used to kind of learn and perform. And we actually won a few awards as well, luckily. It was a group effort, but we won a few, and it was a early motivation for me. But then on, once I started working, it was more for me to kind of do on my own time as much as possible. But that was pretty much it.
Sure. Okay, awesome. What about Ketul?
So yeah, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, born and raised here. I had Indian parents as well, but my parents were very different because they never pressured me into doing anything. So I was never told to become an engineer or a doctor or something like that.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
I mean, I was focused. I mean, they did say like, do something that'll make you money. So there was that, but it was open ended on what I wanted to do and how I went about it. But yeah, my parents were actually really big on making sure that we had like a diverse perspective. So like they got us into like Boy Scouts growing up, tried soccer for a little bit, baseball, played
Hmm.
basketball for a number of years, recreational. So we were engaged with a lot of different things. Oh, and one fun fact, I actually have a twin brother. So that was a really incredible experience growing up.
Whoa, and you didn't want to start a podcast with him, dude? Is he hurt?
No, he just has a busy schedule. So
uh,
he had his own DJ company for like 8 years. So
Whoa.
basically from like college days onwards. So he had his own DJ company for a while, and he got married last year. So about a year ago, he actually wrapped up his own company, and now he's doing emceeing for M4U Entertainment. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I'm so jealous of his lifestyle when he was like have his own company because he'd be flying out to like Jamaica and Mexico like three
Whoa.
times a year and stuff. I was like so jealous. But
Or,
he basically did that, and his schedule was crazy. So unfortunately, even if he wanted to, he probably can't do the podcast because I don't know if you know how frequently we're releasing, but we have a pretty consistent schedule. So like we're releasing one episode a week right now.
That's awesome. That's the hardest thing about maintaining a podcast is like being consistent. So it's good that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been an absolute blast to do it too. It's like we actually want to make this decently big over time, right? It's like the
Yeah.
way that I always view it is consistency is key. If you want to be successful in anything, you just got to
Yeah.
keep up with it.
That's so true. It's like true with like comedy or any pursuit you're doing. It's not like who's the best. It's just like if you can keep doing it the longest and make like steady progressive gains, like it's gonna work out, you know?
Yeah, exactly,
Would you
exactly.
say would you say you and your brother are pretty different?
Um, yes, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, it's so funny because we go the opposite ends. So, like growing up, I was more like less lower energy, and now I would say I'm much higher energy than my brother. So it's so funny. It's like
Mm.
over time as you grow up, it's like you change. And so like my brother, he was really high energy growing up, and like now he's mellowed out. So it's like the two opposite spectrums.
You know, I'm starting to notice that in my life too, because I don't know how old you guys are. I'm 27, but I feel like I'm coming to the first point in my life where I feel like I'm mellowing out a little bit. And I don't know if this is forever, but it's a phase. But I also see friends who never had that kind of energy or weren't partiers like kind of ramp up. And I'm like, oh, I'm having an identity crisis. I'm like, who am I? Who are these people? You know, but it's nice to know that it's like a thing that happens.
so Vishal, so you really actually went to Berkeley. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What did you study?
Yeah,
That would
so
be
I went to Berkeley and I studied electrical engineering and computer science. That was basically just computer science or whatever. I think I actually wanted to go into college for, at the time, I thought it was like physics. And I actually wanted to go to like different schools for it. But I think due to a
Mhm.
combination of like, financial reasons and my parents' pressure and also what Berkeley was known for, I ended up at Berkeley and CS. Um, and it was cool. I mean, in retrospect, had I been a different person and like actually pursued what I was interested in, maybe, or like good
Mhm.
at even, I would have done something different. Who knows, like English.
So we want to do like a whole section about experience of the show. How did you get it in the first place? Let's start there.
Yeah, how did I get it? So I got an email about a year and a half ago from some random production company that was like,
Mhm.
fill out this form. I'm not sure how they got my email in the first place. I know that like in the past, I've like done different gigs, and
Mhm.
so like I assume like various like production agencies or whatever they're called must have my like
Mhm.
contact info from something. And so then they also probably had my demographic info because the email was like, we're looking for like Indian folks who are like looking to be in a relationship and work with a matchmaker and like have it be recorded, like apply for this thing, fill out this Google form with like what you're looking for and like, photos and whatever. It didn't say like Indian matchmaking on it or whatever. And
Mhm.
I think at that point, um, I was definitely dating, and I was like, yeah, I could definitely try to meet a baddie, and also like, I definitely thought it'd be nice to meet an Indian baddie, I think, because that would make my parents happy. And so then I like fill out the info.
Have you watched the show already? And it's come out just not too long ago.
Yeah. So the first day it came out, I watched the first episode in full, and then I had to get to work, so I just like watched the next couple episodes, just my parts. Like, no shade to any of my fellow people that were on it, but I needed to do stuff. And then I started to go back and like rewatch all the stuff I missed. So now I'm on episode 5. So that's been good. We were talking about the age thing. I think it's funny though. Like, random people who I know will be like, "You're 26? Like, I thought you were older than me." And I'm like, "This was filmed last year. Like, I'm still older than you. I'm 27." But I don't think people realize like sometimes it takes a turnaround to like edit this stuff.
Vishal, so what have been your thoughts on how the actual experience went versus how it was portrayed on TV?
Whenever people like tell me, like, I think there's like a general like consensus of like how it appeared on the screen, and like what the takeaways that people had were, at least for like the stuff that I was involved in, which was very surprising to me when I first heard about it, because I was like, that's not how it played out at all in real life. And there were some elements in there that I thought were like non-issues that suddenly everyone's like, a fuss about. And so whenever people like bring that up to me, I just tell them like, hey, that's not like what happened in real life. And then I kind of tell them what happened, and I give them some info about that. And then that's actually what I reached out to Nadia last week, because I was like, hey, I feel like I'm sorry if you're like going through something, and if people are like being mean to you, like, I'm in your corner. And like, from what we talked about before, like, I don't think that's like very fair, and people are not really getting it. And I think she appreciated that. And I think she'll probably say the same thing when you talk to her and get more info. But I would say, like, I was actually talking to her this morning too, and I was talking about like just like a little bit of what I'm going through, and she was like, yeah, like, you just got to remember, like, people who like are quick to judge everything that happens on reality TV, even like a show like this where it's like not as heavily produced as maybe some other reality TV shows, and I have like nothing but nice things to say about the producers and the team. They don't like try to cause any drama or anything, but they do try to create like stories, I think, because that's what is compelling. And I think, the story that they showed was like compelling in certain ways, but it also was maybe inaccurate in certain ways. So yeah.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. Okay.
I hope that wasn't too vague.
No, it was good. It was good. It's like we got a sense for like how there's a disconnect between what people think happened and how it actually went down versus how it actually went down. So it sounds like a lot of people that are reaching out to you to like get more clarification on how the actual events transpired. So that's interesting. Yeah. I know it's a lot of people, they don't realize that there's that disconnect. So they kind of take whatever they see on TV as face value, when the reality is there's a lot of gray in between, right? There are a lot of events that are not captured on TV.
Yeah, there's a lot of events that are not captured on TV, or maybe like one person's perspective is shown, whereas the other person doesn't get a chance to rebuttal that. It's not like in a debate where you actually like, sometimes it's just like people talking to the cameras independently of each other and not hearing the other person's perspective until it actually comes out on TV. And so I don't want to speak to like how other people feel about it now, and like whatever they want to do with each other to like resolve that lack of communication. But I think in the moment, from what I gathered, it seemed like it did not seem to play out that way, but I also didn't know everyone's perspective.
That makes sense. And you also don't have visibility into other things that are going on, right? Aside from what is, centered to your story or your storyline. So that makes sense as well. I think my question really, Vishal, is that, so your cameras are watching you, right? While you hanging out and just, just going on dates and stuff. How difficult it is for you to stay genuine in that moment, because the camera is watching you all this time, and just I know it's hard, but how did you manage that aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, so the times I was filmed was the first time I was filmed was like coming to that mixer, and I definitely was like super nervous, because like they didn't tell me anything about who was going to be there. They didn't tell me what we were going to do. They were kind of just like, we have a lot of people in the tri-state area. We want to throw a mixer, come through. I didn't even know like I was supposed to be looking for a romantic connection. I was like, I didn't even really, I think I knew it was going to be filmed, but I didn't like really know what was expected. I was like, oh, I'm just going to like meet people and hang out. And I got there and there were like people from the show that I recognized from season 1 there. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then new people there. I was like, wow, fascinating. And I think I was definitely a little nervous about being filmed at first or like saying something dumb that would be recorded, but they got us nice and liquored up. So after a while we stopped caring. I think, dude, you laugh, like, I feel like that's a real like secret about how they get people to like do these things in these types of shows is like, they just give you a lot of booze and you just forget after a while. But that was the mixer. Like the next time I was filmed was like when I was on a date with Nadia. And that was interesting because I wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like we were like super liquored up or anything. And I was definitely a little bit nervous at first. But I was lucky in that like she had kind of been through this experience before. And I think she kind of like sensed some of my nervousness and just like gave me looks of just like, it'll be fine. And then once you're like in a conversation with people, they don't really disturb you or make you stop for like quite a while. It could be like 30 to 60 minutes where you're just like talking. And so once you're in the flow of it, you kind of like forget that you're being filmed. And so I'd like to think that I was like somewhat genuine. I was as genuine as I could have been for a person that I was going on a first date with. You know, you're still like trying to put on your best face.
Yeah.
And you're trying to be like fun and interesting and like whatever. But I think I was okay. Some of the really nice things that I've heard from people was like, you know, when they would watch the show, people I knew from high school, probably the nicest thing people say to me, and I heard a lot of people say that they were just like, you know, like you're the exact same guy as you were in high school and stuff. They're like, you walk the same. You're fucking weird and goofy. And I was like, honestly, that's like the nicest thing ever, you know, because I really hoped I would not be like a different type of person in these scenarios. And in general, I just hope I haven't lost some of the characteristics I liked about myself when I was younger. So I'm glad that was still there.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really interesting.
I feel like this is like therapy in that like I feel weird talking about myself for extended periods of time, and my response is like, "What about you guys?" Like, I know sometimes the question isn't always appropriate. I'm like, but that's when you were on TV.
It's like I like it. It's different because most people have not asked us that. I mean, we've officially released 7 episodes, and so far this is the 14th episode that we've recorded. So we have a little bit of backlog, right? And I think I can confidently say you are the first guest that asked that question, actually. So I like that. It like mixes it up a little bit.
Yeah, fuck those other 13 people. Are you guys trying to like release this sooner rather than later for like reasons? Okay.
Yeah. So I alluded a little bit to it earlier, but basically we want to release these episodes while everything is still on trend. Right now it's trending and like everyone's watching those episodes. So we want to release this episode. We have a couple other cast members lined up, so we want to record those and get those out as well. And then we actually want to really keep it on trend. So what we're thinking is also hit up the cast of Never Have I Ever, because that's trending.
Yeah, good luck, man. I hope you get it.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what do you do outside of work?
So I work at Google as a software engineer. I've been there since January 2019. It's been fun. I worked in the Bay Area for a couple years. I worked in the ads division, working on back-end infrastructure for mobile app ads. It was pretty interesting. And then I moved into New York a few months ago, and now I work on a team within the security org, doing some pretty cool stuff. It's been fun, doing regular software engineering stuff.
Awesome. And you also do stand-up comedy outside of work, right?
I do.
How did you get the idea? What is the motivation behind it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. In college, I had done like 1 or 2 open mics that were in the area. When I turned 21, bars are the main places that I think you could do that. And so there were a couple that had them, and I did them, and I did terrible. Not only was I terrible, I think I was like kind of offensive because that's what I thought was like funny back then, and I didn't really like it at all. And then I just like did it twice, and then I hadn't done it for years. And then I had left my previous job, and I was about to start my current company, and I had about like 2 months off, and I was hanging out with my buddy in a cafe one day, and I was just surfing the internet. And I don't know how it came up, but we decided to look up like open mics in the area. There was one that night. It was actually like a music mic, but you could do whatever. It was a variety mic. And so they were like, me and a couple friends were like, all right, let's go tonight. And I didn't realize like stand-up comedy is generally like pre-written, but I had the illusion that like, oh my God, you just go up there and talk about whatever. And I was just like, all right, I'm just going to go and tell a story. And I was like in between like people playing like lovely songs and guitar and singing. I went up, I did 5 minutes. I was so nervous. I had like so much stage fright, and I told a story about a time I was in Vegas. I got like negative laughter. And then I went off stage and I was sweating. I felt disgusting. And then I went to Europe for a few weeks. And then when I came back, I was like, let me do that again, which is so fucking dumb. But I did about like one mic a week. I started to like write some stuff. I was still really nervous. I was still really bad. But then at a certain point, it just became like a habit, and I just started like doing it every day. And then, just kind of never stopped.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what's interesting is I view all that stuff as also like practice makes perfect, right? Is as you keep on doing it more and more, you refine that skill set. It gets better and better. That's been our experience like with this podcast as well. Like every episode we record, it gets better and better in terms of the types of questions we ask, how we communicate with our guests, etc. And also the marketing and branding part too, right? It's like, how do we get guests on? Like the entire system and process gets better as we do it more and more.
Yeah, man, there's like so many lessons that I would take away from that, but like from comedy, but like the biggest one probably is like related to what you're saying. It's like really adopting a growth mindset, because that's when I started doing stand-up. That was around the time that I started to like really like look into like growth mindset and whatever. And coming from like an Indian background or like a very competitive background in the Bay Area, it was kind of like you were rewarded for like being smart, like I really up until like high school, up until college, I was just like coasting on school stuff because I was just like smart and I wouldn't put in a lot of work and things were just like easy. But then when it came time to like actually do things that you were bad at, I wouldn't try. And I would just fail, but for fear of being seen as like trying too hard or whatever, or just like, I'm bad at this thing, I can never do it. But I think like, starting comedy at 24, or 23 or whatever, how old it was, being bad at something in your adult life and then going through the process of getting better, like really teaches you that. I think a very common thing that a lot of people can relate to is like probably skiing. If you've never skied as a child and you start as an adult, you're going to be horrible. But if you can get through that process and realize like you can learn anything as you like get through it, I think it's like a valuable skill for the rest of your life.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. So
it's a lot of life lessons there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm on my soapbox about that one thing. I like that.
So what's next for you when it comes to the stand-up comedy piece, right? Do you really want to go all in on that? Like, is that your dream? Is that what you really want to do like full time at some point? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Nah, I don't know. I don't really like to think too far out ahead. Because I mean, right now I'm just focused on doing it and getting adapted to New York and just like getting better. Maybe this is like a limiting belief of mine, but I always like to think like, I don't think that like, oh, I'm going to be like the best at it or I'm like whatever and I can be like super successful. I try to like keep my expectations low for things. And I'm just like, let me just focus on like getting better, writing like a joke that I enjoy, getting better at writing, getting better at performing, doing all these things, just focusing on like short-term learning and improvements, because that's what kind of I appreciate and keep as a value. In the future, like, I don't know, I think we'll see. Right now it's hard to like give up a job that pays money and has healthcare for something that will not. So I don't know.
Yeah. I have a question related to that, Vishal. So you obviously mentioned that you were a mischievous kid. So how much of that comes naturally versus how much you have to deliberately think about when you're writing your jokes and you're writing your scripts?
Yeah, man, I'm still figuring that out. I think that I'm
Mm.
still at the point where I feel like there's a disconnect between me when I'm feeling funny around my friends and me when I'm like writing jokes and like performing them on stage. There are similarities, but I wish I could like bring them together 100%, which I think just takes like a lot of time. But with like writing and stuff, I've gone through like every single way of like trying to write and thinking about things. I'm trying to write some bits about like the show in the last week recently. And kind
Hmm.
of the way I've been doing that is just like, I just have this like bullet point list of like stuff I've been thinking about related to the show, or like conversations I'll have with people and things that I think are funny or like keep coming up. And then I'll like, have this like list, and then I'll just be like out and about, and I just can't stop thinking about something, and I think about it, and I add another line here, another line here, like three
Hmm.
different ideas, bring them together in some way, and then I end up like having a punchline finally. Um, and so yeah, I think it depends on the thing. Sometimes I'll be at my computer and I'm like, I need to write. And then like sometimes something good happens. Sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
I need to write more. That's like a common thing that probably every comic thinks, but I definitely need to, as I just need to write more. I'm actually going to go to an open mic right after this and just
Oh,
like,
that's awesome. Okay,
yeah,
that's awesome.
write some new stuff.
Do you have a theme
Yeah.
in mind, or just gonna just test out a bunch of different ideas?
Um, I want to test out the stuff that I've been working on related to the show. So I'm probably going to do like one old joke just to set the tone up top, and then like work on this thing, and then go from there.
All right, that's
Awesome.
awesome.
Awesome. So what's been your most memorable performance so far when it comes to stand-up comedy? Is there one?
I don't necessarily know that I have one.
Hmm.
The first thing that comes to mind is like the first time I did like uh, a good show in front of people in like a hot room. I was only a couple months into stand up, and I had like no right or reason to be there, and all my jokes were like hack and dumb, but like it was crazy. It was at this place called Comedy Oakland in Oakland. Shout out to Comedy Oakland. I don't know why you booked me then, but one of the guys who actually runs it is Indian. His name is Samson Koletkar. And the other two guys, Samson is like an Indian Jew, actually. Like, very interesting. I didn't know that existed.
Hmm.
He's not going to listen to this.
I had no idea.
But like, I did like a joke, and like, just like the acoustics of the room and the way things were set up, it was like I was in like a sonic bath of laughter, and it was just like better than sex. It was better than like anything you could imagine. And I was like, that is like why you do it. You get addicted to that, and
I
it
see.
takes like a weird type of insanity to want to subject yourself to this stuff, because you're like spending all this time for like nothing, and you bomb more than you do well. But I guess like those little hits are like, as a comic, you value that much more than other people do, and so that's why you do it.
The dopamine. That's what it is. So you're waiting for those specific moments to give you like that dopamine burst.
Yeah, except for some reason, I bet like regular people are like, I'm not going to get dopamine from that, So
Hmm.
it was funny. I was actually on Hinge this week, and some girl found out I like did the show, and she was like, what made you want to do it? And I was just like, I don't know. It just sounded fun. And she was like, I think we have different definitions of fun. And I was like, I match.
Oh, that's gonna bring up a whole host of topics. Is like, how has like the episode, like when it aired, well, episodes, I think it was on multiple, right? Like one or two. How has that impacted like your recognitions on multiple different platforms?
Not too much. Like a couple girls on dating apps have like recognized me, or like even if they haven't recognized me from the show. I went on a date with a girl last week, and she Googled me before and found out I was on the show, even though she'd never heard of it and watched it and asked me about it. But
Hmm.
I don't really like talking about this stuff, so I end up just like changing the conversation real quick, or like, which people find annoying because they're like, I asked you a question and now you're turning it back on me, and now it's an interview, and I don't like that. So I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. But actually, like, the other week at the park, I I was on a date, and I saw my buddy, and I waved at him, and I was like, "What's up?" And he was with a girl I never met. She's like, "Whoa, like you know what? I like don't know you, but I know you." And I was like, "Okay, all right." She'd seen the show. And then yesterday I was walking down the street, and I heard my name, Vishal, and I was looking around. I was like, "What?" And then after 10 seconds, some dude came out of the passenger window of a car and was like, "Vishal, Indian matchmaking, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yeah." And he drove away.
So basically, you get like those random nods from random people. It's like, "Yeah, I know who you are," but
the funniest thing, I don't know why, just in retrospect, I think it's so weird that he just like felt so comfortable using my first name, like on a first name basis. He was just like, not even like, "Hey, are you Vishal?" He's like, Vishal. I was like, "Is this my friend?"
That's like, you should like put some of those jokes into the stand-up stuff. I feel like you did well.
All right, well,
yeah.
Keep this in the final edit, and then I'll listen back to it and I'll write it down. You know, I'm not gonna remember this.
Yeah.
Will do. Yeah, amazing. So, Vishal, aside from already what you spoke about, any kind of parting advice for people who are starting to get into a stand-up comedy or just, any passion that they would like to pursue?
Are you guys trying to get into stand-up?
We have a friend. We have a mutual friend. He does stand-up in SF right now, but he goes back and forth between SF and New York City. Tejas Dharamsamy.
Oh, I don't know.
How do you pronounce his last name? I don't even know.
Tejas Dharamsy, and he actually is he's got a background in tech as well. He works at Twitter, so that's his full-time job, and he does stand-up comedy on the side as a moonlighting almost.
Yeah, I know most of the San Francisco comics, at least who were there around the time I was there. Maybe new people cropped up, but not every New York comic. So yeah, maybe I'll look them up and see if we have mutuals.
Oh, I mean, I can connect you guys because like I know him decently well. Like I met him a couple of times, and Deepam lives in San Francisco, so he's met him a couple of times. So we can connect you if you want. You guys can bounce ideas off each other because you guys are trying to break into the same industry, right? So
Sure. I'll look them up on Insta and see what mutuals we have. I'm curious. I'm not qualified to give any advice on stand-up, but I guess the only thing I could say about the only advice I could give is like how to not repeat the same mistakes that I did, which was I probably spent a year bombing and grasping at straws before I actually decided to learn about how to write a joke. I was really going off of like enthusiasm and performance ability at first. So I would recommend definitely trying to learn how to write a joke first. And then, I guess just realize there are no secrets. Just get up as much as you can and write as much as you can. Definitely be nice to people and meet a bunch of people. I think a lot of people think being competitive is better, being a dick to other people is better. But even if you don't receive anything in return, I think it's just good to be nice to people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably true for any industry.
I think you're right. Well, there's one exception.
What?
Wrestling and UFC. Oh, I guess Why? 2 exceptions. Well, that gets views when people call each other out and trash talk. That gets views, right? Boxing, I think it's all the combat sports. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, wrestling, of course, the real true sport of wrestling. That's not staged at all.
Not WWE.
I wonder if maybe I don't know with UFC. They're probably nice to the people in their circle, but to when they're actually doing well and on the thing, yeah, probably.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point. I think it's when you're competing against someone, you're fighting someone. That's when it sells to be rude and obnoxious and all this other stuff, offensive and all this stuff, right? Trash talking and all that. But you're right. I think everyone else outside of that, when you're not in that mode of just attacking your opponent, at that point, it's probably pays to be nice to people.
Yeah. I mean, you probably know more about these sports than I do, but do you think Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor actually fucking hate each other?
I think a part of it just might be for the publicity. I do think I think a lot of it is they know that if you have beef with someone, it sells. And I think that's probably why part of it's probably artificial, I feel like.
Yeah. The one thing I could probably believe is true is that everyone hates Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So one final question there, and then we're going to switch to the next segment, which is the rapid fire round.
Sure.
So the last question is, when it comes to other stand-up comics, do you like try to learn from the technique of other people that have been successful, or like how do you go about that learning process of fine-tuning your craft?
Right. There was one more thing that I wanted to say on that point, which it kind of ties into this, which is like, I think it's like, especially with comedy, people are really weird about like trying to learn comedy. They're like, you can't learn how to be funny, and like you can't learn how to have a sense of humor. You know, that's like very natural to yourself. But like I think you can learn certain things, like how to write a joke. You can learn how to perform in certain ways, whatever. And probably the best, the first thing I did that I was advice I got from an older comic who's like great, and he's out here. His name is Ryan Schooley. We played poker the other week. Very nice guy. He was like, watch like 5-minute like late night sets and like transcribe the jokes of the comics you like, and like look at them on paper and like look at what's the funny part. Then like look for similarities and see how they get to the funny part. And that was like the first thing I did that like really accelerated my writing. And that's something where, you know, I learned from like a comic who was a little older than me, but I was also like learning from comics I appreciated on TV, like learning from them and looking at their structure. So I definitely think you should like learn from other people, because like Richard Pryor has a quote that's like, I know all the rules, and that's how I can break them. You know, it's like you got to learn all the things so you can like do your own thing later. I think the thing I try to remember is like learn as much as you can from like everyone, and then figure out what works for you. You know, Stephen King has a book on writing, and he talks about like the toolbox, you know, and it's just like getting everything you can and putting the things that work into your toolbox. And then maybe in 50 years, you're going to think, you know, I'm a genius, and you're going to sell your own like system of like comedy writing or whatever. And you're like, this is what worked for me. But, you know, maybe only like 10% of that will work for someone else, but they'll put it into their toolbox. And so it goes, you know? So I think it's a combination of all the things. And this goes for anything, not just comedy.
Okay.
Makes a
No,
lot of
that's
sense.
fantastic. All right. Let's hand it over to Deepam for the rapid fire round. Are you ready for this?
All right. Are you ready, Vishal?
Yeah. Am I talking too much, by the way?
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
All right. So rapid fire, first thing comes to mind. Some questions are not one word answered, so you'll know when it comes. But all right, let's start. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
All right. Mountains or beaches?
Beaches.
Interesting. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
I feel like I've realized the trend. It's like most guests always say night owl. So I feel like it's a generational thing. Everyone, right. Most people from our generation are night owls, not morning people.
Night owls who want to be morning people but find it impossible, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What's your favorite comfort food?
Ooh, probably like biryani.
Nice. Are you talking chicken or vegetarian? I hope chicken.
So my family's vegetarian, and so I was vegetarian until I was 16, and now I eat meat, and my parents don't really like it, but whatever. But whenever I go home, my dad makes this dope fucking biryani, and he throws like paneer in it and like all these other things, and it's like so good, and like that's the only thing I eat when I go home. But if he like, you know, wasn't vegetarian and he made it with chicken, that would be hype, but never gonna happen.
Makes sense. All right, what's your favorite virtue in others?
My favorite virtue?
Yes, in others.
I guess, I don't know, being nice to other people, but that feels very like generic. I don't know if that's a virtue.
So I think you already alluded to this just a few minutes ago, right? Like just being nice to, like, probably kindness is what the word you're looking for.
Yeah. I think that makes sense based on what you were saying earlier.
Okay. All right. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve. Oh, man, I think I thought of something the other week that I was like, this is my pet peeve. What is my biggest pet peeve? Can I get back to this? I want to like ruminate on this.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna search my like messages for the word peeve and see if I have. I know I have something good for this.
Sounds good. All right. So should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. Move on.
All right. What's your secret superpower?
My secret superpower. Ooh, I think I can make other people feel appreciated and uplifted. I try to do that as much as I can.
That is
So,
awesome.
so basically, you're really good at being friendly and nice. So the same trait you look for in other people.
Yeah, did I mention I'm also a narcissist? So,
So you got to balance it out, right? You got to balance out the good with the bad.
all right. The thing I like about other people is the thing I like most about myself because I'm awesome.
Okay.
Funny story about that, actually. So I'm low key a narcissist too, or at least I come across as a narcissist.
Who's not, man?
But it's in a funny way. So like
Right.
I almost do it. I almost sound delusional, but it's intentional because I just find it so funny. So like a good example is my sister-in-law, right? So my sister-in-law, basically, it just turned into a gag at this point. I just do it all the time just for fun. But basically, I every morning, like I'll send her a text message or like I'll send her an Instagram voice note that says, my sister-in-law's name is Dipti, right? So I basically say, Dipti, I just wanted you to know that I'm awesome. And like I'll say that one day, right? And then another day I'll be like, Dipti, I just wanted to let you know that I'm a G, I'm a boss. And I just keep on doing it just for fun. So like for some people it would like come across as like delusional or just like, obnoxious or whatever you want to call it, like,
I think it's
narcissistic.
hilarious.
But
Yeah.
I just think it's hilarious, exactly.
And funny thing is that after a certain point, if you do it consistently, you start believing it.
Exactly. That's the other piece of it.
It's like a really shitty affirmation that like hurts someone else. That's funny.
But it actually, no, Deepo, you bring up a great point. It's if you say enough and you say consistently to people, they're gonna start believing it about you. Like I can just say every day, it's like, yo, I am an amazing basketball player. And
Yeah.
like if I say it every single day, until they see me like play basketball and they realize I suck, they're gonna think I'm a great basketball player if I repeat it enough.
As long as you never played in front of them.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's I always find that really funny too. So if you repeat it enough, people are just gonna start believing that about you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So next question, Vishal. So what's been your biggest accomplishment in the last 1 or 2 years? Being on the show?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
I mean, like the biggest. I moved to New York. Finally, I wanted to do that for a long time, and so that was pretty good. I think probably like biggest accomplishment though is I feel like probably just like a lot of character growth and self growth. Like I do feel like I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago, and I probably
Mhm.
was a different person at that point than 4 years ago, and so I like to look at that as an accomplishment.
Yeah, that
Very,
sounds good.
very
Like
good.
personal growth, basically. Personal growth in many different areas of life.
Exactly. What about you
Awesome.
guys? Starting the podcast.
Actually, a bunch of things for
That
me personally, right? So if I think about myself, I lived in San Francisco area, right? So I lived in a new state for an extended period of time. So
Yeah.
before then, I had never lived outside of New Jersey. Like I visited everywhere, right? Travel and all that, but never actually lived in another place. Besides that, I would say we started a podcast together. That was pretty cool.
Mhm.
And then the biggest thing is I proved to myself that I can thrive anywhere, right? So I moved to
Yeah.
a city where I knew very few people and just built like this entire social circle, got involved in a lot of different things. So I'd say the biggest personal growth thing for me in the last couple of years is the fact that I proved to myself that I can thrive anywhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, man, I totally relate. Like, when I was talking about that period in between jobs, I did like a solo trip to Europe, and like I want to do that again because I was like, I got there, and I was like, I wanted to leave immediately. I was like, I know no one. Like, I'm really like, I called my mom and I was like, I want to go back home, and I thought she'd be stoked, and she was like, just like give it a day or two, and then I had like the time of my life for the next couple of weeks and met so many cool people. But I think experiences like that are just like so awesome, and you grow so much.
That's amazing. And actually, it's interesting you bring up the Euro trip because my co-host here, Deepam, he actually did that for his birthday just a handful of weeks ago, right? Deepam, if
Oh
you want
wow!
to share that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually one of my accomplishments in the last 1 year. So I'll say the biggest one is actually buying a house for my parents back in India. So that was
Dude,
huge for
nice.
me. So that was huge for me. That was a long time coming, but I finally took the plunge and just was able to do that. So that was the biggest thing. But after that is definitely the Europe trip, which is something I've been planning for years. It's kind of harder for me to plan from India as well. So I just finally made it happen this year with all the roadblocks that came across. So I had a lot of fun. I was mostly invested in Europe. I don't know about where you where did you go? But I was in like Netherlands or Spain and Belgium, that area for the most part.
Yeah, I did Barcelona on that particular trip. Yeah, Barcelona to Berlin to Prague to Amsterdam.
Oh, so you went the other way. I actually started from Amsterdam and came down.
Oh yeah.
So, mhm.
Yeah. I was very pleasantly surprised by Prague. I had like way more fun there than I was expecting, and I was a little disappointed by Amsterdam. But it was a good trip. You went by yourself?
No, actually, I have a friend living there in Amsterdam already. So we crashed at his place for like a week. And then I had one friend coming from India. So we all three went for a road trip in Spain.
Oh man.
We started from Barcelona, went up, and then down the coast from Costa Brava to Valencia. That's where we
Did you
ended.
stay in hostels?
We did. So we also did Paris for a couple of days. So that's where we, stayed in hostel in Paris, and it was a great experience. I really had a time of my life, and I feel so lucky to be able to celebrate my birthday in
Awesome.
Europe, which I was trying to do that for a long time, and it finally made it happen. So,
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations to both of you guys on your accomplishments too.
Oh yeah, likewise to you, man. You got a
for
bunch
sure.
of stuff that you've done recently as well. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So, Vishal, what's next for you?
Nothing really lined up,
Season 3?
Season 3? I mean, not that I know of. I know they're filming it, but I'm not in it as of right now. Just like continuing to grind on comedy. I'm hoping, once things settle down with this stuff a little bit, I can just like get back to my normal life and like kind of my routine. I think I like thrive the most when I have a routine, and I was in a relationship for a while and we broke up a little bit. And so like, I think I still didn't get time to like get back into like the, steady state of what I want to do. And so just like going to bed at a good time, working out every day, eating healthy, going to mics every day, going to work. Yeah.
Awesome.
What about you guys?
All right.
I'll let Deepam go first this time.
For me, I'm taking a trip to New York. I think that's the biggest thing that's coming up for me in October. So
you ever been before?
Yeah, I visit, but that's the plan right now. And actually, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else aside from the podcast. Obviously, we're focusing a lot on the podcast. Bringing new guests and like big guests as well. It's really trying to make a huge thing out of it. So that's definitely a focus. But yeah, aside from that, that's a big trip coming up for me.
You guys are really hustling with this. We only started a month ago and have had 14 guests, right?
14 guests. Great. Yeah, we're trying to build a backlog because we know that life happens and you might do travel and that kind of stuff. So like we want to maintain that consistency of one episode a week. So that's why we're hustling. It's like we want to build like a 10 episode backlog so we can take a month off if we need to for whatever reason.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Kito, I don't know about you. What's next for you, man?
So a couple different stuff that I'm working on, right? So I'm like that, similar to, it sounds like you guys, just like trying to have my hand in a lot of different things. So podcast is definitely front and center for me from a focus perspective, trying to really grow that, get really high caliber guests on, make this blow up. And right now we're really going after trends. So it's like never have I ever, Indian matchmaking, whatever the next hit thing is, we're going to go after it.
So we are actually reaching the end of our conversation, Vishal. So before we wrap up, I just have one last question, which I ask all our guests. So do you have any recommendations for our listener? A recommendation could be like a book or a podcast or a comedy show or a comic, anything that you've been, listened to lately and it's just you found really interesting.
Oh man. Yeah. Like what books would I recommend? It's funny, probably two books I would recommend that have actually been coming up a lot lately, because people like to talk about these things. One book is called Why We Sleep. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a book on why we sleep, but I read it during the early pandemic, and like I knew it was important to like sleep, but this book, literally over hundreds of pages, this dude just shames you into sleeping a lot. And I'm just like, if I don't sleep, I'll die, and like literally that's what he says. Like,
okay,
it must be some really powerful writing there.
Yeah.
Thinking like that.
I'm summarizing. He makes like a million arguments, like your brain, like, you know, fucks up if it doesn't sleep. You need to sleep at a consistent time, or else, like, you know, you're missing like parts of sleep that only happen like when you sleep at that time. And, you know, rates of diseases go up, and Alzheimer's and heart disease and all these things. Your body doesn't recover well from working out, or your stress levels go up, just like a million different things. Someone asked about sleep this morning, and I recommended to them, and over the past several months, I've recommended to a bunch of people, because everyone is like, I want to sleep more. And I'm like, all right, read this book. Probably the other one that has come up a lot lately is for anyone going through a breakup. I think reading the book Attached, I always recommend it to them. It's like the book on attachment styles, kind of. And it really helped me get through a breakup, in that I kind of learned that the things I was feeling and going through when I didn't have control were just like a common feeling experienced among all people going through that thing because of your attachment system. And you're not crazy, and you're not weird, and you just need to let your body kind of run its course. Yeah, those are two books that I've recommended to a lot of people lately. So might as well recommend it to other people.
Very helpful.
All right, fantastic. This was an absolutely wonderful conversation. So I do want to do a couple plugs here at the end. So first off, you know, if you're not already following Vishal, please give him a follow. Vishal, if you want to share your handle.
It is vishal.cal on Instagram.
All right, so give Vishal.cal a follow. And if you're not already connected to the Your Life Unfiltered podcast, you know, you can check us out on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. You can also give us a follow at Your Life Unfiltered on Instagram. We post a lot of content on there, and you will be sure to find some incredible guests lined up over the next couple of weeks and months. So definitely stay tuned for some great episodes coming your way. All right, thank you, everyone. This was an absolute blast. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.